tackling tough topics to help you think reasonably about life's most important issues. This is Thinker Sensitive. Welcome to Thinker Sensitive. My name is Ryan Ragazine, and I am the host of the Thinker Sensitive podcast. I hope you all had a very good holiday season and a happy new year. One of my main goals in 2021 was really to just start this podcast and get it off the ground. And fortunately, I've been able to do that. And I think one of my main goals for 2022 now is to really build the audience and grow it. And so I've spent the last couple of days just thinking about how I want to do that and how I could do that. Anyways, today's podcast is about the nature and value of criticism. Contemporary society is loaded with criticism. It almost seems like the majority of our self-expression on social media is critical or judgmental in nature. In my experience on social media, it's more likely to see a person criticize something or someone than to see a person commend something or someone. It's also much more popular to criticize others than to criticize oneself, which often displays an unfortunate lack of self-awareness. There are some people who pop up on my social media feed who literally only offer criticism of other people and other viewpoints. Like, I've never once seen these people go out of their way to say something positive about another person or to commend another viewpoint. And it'd be a miracle if any of them ever offered up some semblance of self-criticism. Ironically, this overly critical spirit is usually paired with a don't judge me mentality that seemingly views all judgments as bad. We're quick to judge others, but even quicker to judge those who judge us. I think the reality is that we're okay with criticism and judgment as long as the criticisms and judgments aren't aimed at us. We no doubt have some blind spots when it comes to this issue. The reality is that we all make judgments. We all judge other people and judge other things almost constantly throughout our daily lives, whether we vocalize these judgments or not. There's really no way around this. I would even argue that our minds naturally and subconsciously make judgments throughout our daily experience. The nature of communication on social media is probably the greatest concrete example of this. Though most news articles tend to be quite critical and judgmental as well. But here's the big question. Are all judgments bad? Are all criticisms unwarranted? Is it possible to speak about good judgments? If so, are such judgments important or even necessary at times? What's the difference between good criticism and bad criticism? These are the tough questions that we'll be tackling in this episode. So let's talk about the nature and character of criticism. And within this, I want to create a comparison and contrast between good criticism and bad criticism. Not all criticism is good, and vice versa. Bad criticism involves things like ridicule, insults, name-calling that tears a person down or demonizes a person. It involves hasty, unthoughtful, inaccurate, uncharitable, uncritical, and dismissive thoughts and judgments. Good criticism, on the other hand, is thoughtful. It's equitable. It's just. It involves civil objections that are raised against the belief or idea rather than against the person. Let me give an example from a theistic thought process or a theistic viewpoint. People who don't believe in a higher power are stupid and evil. That's a great example of a bad criticism. Let me give an example of a good criticism from a theistic viewpoint. I believe that atheistic thought ends up undermining the nature of human rationality and human belief. And this is why I think this. Notice the difference here between a bad criticism and a good criticism in terms of its nature and its character. Good criticism is sincerely concerned about truth and justice, and it actually cares about the well being of people and society as a whole. Bad criticism, on the other hand, is not concerned about what's actually true and just, and it lacks care for people and society as a whole. So, good criticism is constructive rather than deconstructive. Good criticism edifies, it builds up, it's focused on the good of others. A lot of criticism within the context of good parenting falls under this category. When loving parents correct their children, they do so in order to build up their children. They do so for the good of the child. Bad criticism, on the other hand, deconstructs and tears down. And it's actually focused on the good of self rather than the good of others. I'm focused on my victory, my power, my status, my worth. Good criticism is also nuanced and balanced, whereas bad criticism is unnuanced and unbalanced. Good criticism doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's able to recognize the good in the midst of the bad. It finds value in the midst of disagreement, and it's able to balance negativity with positivity, avoiding extremes and avoiding overcriticism. Let me give an example. When I saw the movie The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, I had mixed feelings and mixed emotions. I thought the movie was beautifully filmed. I thought it was well acted. Because I naturally gravitate towards darker movies and darker shows, I really liked the atmosphere and the overall feeling that was created in the movie. But on the other hand, the movie kind of comes across as a radical critique of American values and conventions, even possibly democratic and capitalist structures. A critique that almost seems to devolve into a glorification of violence and anarchy. Remember what Alfred said to Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight in regards to the Joker? He said, "Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn." At times, during 2020 and all the civil unrest that was taking place in that year, I felt like the film The Joker was actually playing out before our eyes and coming to life in our city streets. The movie maybe hits a little too close to home at this point. And so, though there are a lot of positive things that I can say about the film, and though I recognize a lot of value in the movie, including the awareness that it brings to mental illness, I think that its overall critique of culture and society is a bit unbalanced, unnuanced, and can lead to radicalism or extremism, at least as far as how I'm subjectively interpreting the movie. I have no idea what message the creators of the movie were actually intending to communicate. They may have been trying to communicate something quite different, but I can really only speak about my subjective interpretation of the movie or how it subjectively struck me. Finally, good judgments are self critical. Self criticism is really important because it protects us from hypocrisy and a Pharisaic spirit. It's so important that I judge myself before I judge others. And this is a principle that Jesus of Nazareth taught. Now, some people look at Jesus and they think that he was anti criticism or anti judgment, but that's not the case. In fact, you could sum up Jesus' entire ministry by saying that his ministry represented an overarching critique of the religious establishment of his day. Jesus was certainly a cultural critic. He passed judgment and he offered criticism, but he warned against hypocritical judgments. So, good criticism is self critical, it criticizes self before it criticizes others. Whereas bad criticism is hypocritical in nature. It criticizes others without honest self assessment, without honest self criticism. Now, I believe that good criticism is extremely important. Good criticism is necessary to positive change and progress in an imperfect world full of imperfect people. I also think that people are ethically responsible for speaking truth in the face of injustices. There are so many examples of important cultural critiques in human history. We could talk about the medieval or the Enlightenment critique of the feudal system. We could talk about the modern critique of the fusion of church and empire. We could talk about the critique of modern slavery. We could talk about the critique of Jim Crow laws. And we could talk about the contemporary environmental critique today. We should never fall into the illusion that human culture has progressed to such an extent that there's no more need of criticism. Criticism almost always revolves around risk and timing. Criticism, even good criticism, always involves a risk. I think the main risk is probably rejection. Criticism can result in a loss of relationship, a loss of employment, or a loss of status and popularity. The fruitfulness of our criticism is often contingent on the maturity and the character of our audience. I need to have a base openness and a base humility in order to receive your criticism in a constructive manner. And that's not easy. Now, criticism also revolves around timing. Good criticism should be measured and calculated. I have to pick and choose my battles. There's always a time and a place, and I have to use wisdom to discern when to offer criticism and when not to. Another thing that I wanted to quickly point out is that there's a difference between being critical and opinionated and being vocal. Being critical and having opinions is a good thing. Being extremely and consistently vocal about those opinions can be grating, irritating, and burdensome, especially within the context of relationships. No one likes being constantly corrected and critiqued. Think about a grammar Nazi. No one likes having their speech and having their grammar continually critiqued and corrected. It becomes burdensome after a while. It becomes annoying, right? In relationships, I think our default stance should be grace, not judgment. To conclude my first weekly of the new year, I'd say that there's too much bad criticism in our society. Good criticism has become a bit of a lost art. Of course, this judgment itself is a personal criticism of mine that is open to the criticism of others. See how we're all part of a recurring chain of criticism that runs in all directions? It might be productive to honestly assess the nature of our self expression. If I look back at my communication on social media over the last year, is it mostly negative, or do I have some positive things to say as well? Do I exclusively criticize others, or do I criticize myself at times also? On social media, do I ever commend other people or speak highly of other things? In general, are my criticisms and judgments more in line with my definition of good criticism or bad criticism? Thinker sensitive, in part and in a sense, is designed to function as a constructive critique of much of the bad criticism that is found in our society. Thinker sensitive is designed to model good criticism. But we must ask the question, in a world full of judgment and criticism, is it really wise to add more? I personally think so. Partly because I believe that good criticism is important and necessary at times, and partly because I see value in modeling good criticism in our society, since I'm not sure that we have many good examples of this in culture today. We are all critical and judgmental, at least in the purest sense of these terms. What matters is how we express our criticisms and judgments, from the intentions of our hearts, to the words that we use to articulate our thoughts, to our tone of voice, to our self-awareness and self-recognition. We are all critics, and that's okay. What matters most is that when we offer criticism, we offer good criticism in love for all. Thanks so much for listening. This episode, and all episodes of Thinker Sensitive, are available at thinkersensitive.com, iTunes, Spotify, and more. If you enjoy our content and wish to donate to help us grow our online community of thinkers, please visit thinkersensitive.com.